Hello, everyone. Jim Coventry from RotoWire here. Very excited to talk fantasy football on this great day. I am excited to be putting this live stream out on YouTube, RotoWire YouTube, and hopefully those who are watching this will hit the like and subscribe button. Let me get my flow going here. I'm a little bit off. Got to get rolling. So on Thursday, June 22nd, I was part of the NFFC Beat Jim Coventry RotoWire Online Challenge. It was an outstanding draft with a great group of players. First of all, I want to reach out and throw out Greg Ambrose's and Tom Kesenick's name. They are the guys in charge at the NFFC. Derek Bukar is in there. I keep saying his name wrong. Sorry about that, Derek. Derek's involved as well, but these guys run a great operation at the NFFC. If you're playing high stakes fantasy, this is the place you want to go. They do have 6 points per passing touchdown. It is full PPR, third round reversal, and I love the Kentucky Derby style drafting they have, where you prioritize 1 through 12, the order of draft spots you'd like. And then when the draft order comes out, hopefully you have a great shot to get the position you were looking for. I did have 10 near the top of my list. That's where I ended up drafting. But a few points I want to point out. The RotoWire Online Challenge, it's a $250,000 top prize. It's a $350 entry to get into this. You get prizes for winning your league as well. If you're in the Beat Jim Coventry leagues, and we are supposed to have one probably near the end of July. I know the guys from the NFFC told me to reach out to them around training camp openings, and we'll get one going then. And definitely, if you beat me in those leagues, you get a free RotoWire subscription. All right, last couple business points. If you want a free trial to RotoWire, no credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/Jim. We are just churning away the content, football, baseball, NBA, all the sports. We have you covered. And if you're not following me on socials at Jim Coventry NFL, please do. I try to share as much content as I can, a lot of video content, but the written content on Twitter, the threads, those will be coming soon. All right, two more things. The SiriusXM show, I'll be hosting that on weekends beginning July 8th. So on Fantasy Channel 87 from 1 to 3. I'll be on Saturdays with Mario Puig and Sundays with Alan Soslowski. And then mid-July, 5 times a week on YouTube RotoWire. I'll be doing a show 5 times a week. All right, let's talk about the draft that we just had and break this down. As I said, a very competitive draft. You can see the draft board here at. It just lists team numbers. We don't have any names on this. Some people might want to keep their name to themselves, and we'll keep it that way for them. All right, so anyway, first thing I always tell people when you draft, I definitely do have a top 500 list, but the list that I use when I draft is the individual positional rankings. Obviously, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, kicker, defense. There's kickers in this league and there's defenses. So, but regardless, those positional rankings are very important. And here's why. You have no idea how a particular draft is going to go. If you just have a straight list you're working from, the problem becomes if the draft works in a direction where positions are going at a rate they don't typically go at, your big board may not reflect that, and you could end up having holes in your lineup. You can get caught in the current of the draft and end up having the draft dictate you as opposed to you dictating the draft. By having positional rankings, you're able to see at which rate each position is drying up to let you know where scarcity and teardrops are coming into play so that you can address your positional needs. Now, in this particular draft, again, reminding you, it's full PPR, 6 points per passing touchdown. And again, there's a third round reversal in the draft. So in this draft, we had 8 receivers go in the first round, and that has been fairly typical this year. That's not going to change. They're in prior years. Sometimes we'll see the early summer run of receivers, and then when we get into those August drafts, nope, it's back to the old school running back. Now, there will be some drafts that have those. I was in one industry draft where it did go running back heavy, but that was the anomaly. And in some neighborhood drafts, that may still happen. But this year, the trend is receivers are going early, and 33 receivers went in the first 5 rounds of the draft. Now, on balance, so I said 8 receivers go in the first round, 3 running backs in the first. Obviously, the math dictates that. Travis Kelce, the tight end in the mix. 13 running backs through 4 rounds. That was it. The receivers were going heavy. And obviously the break point was the running backs going more lightly. Even the quarterbacks, fairly typical though, 2 went in the second round, and by the time 4 rounds were done, there were 6 off the board. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's just focus back to the wide receivers. So obviously, when they go very heavy early, there's a point where that is not going to continue because obviously the rosters have to get balanced out. So that point in this draft began around the 6th round. At that point, teams are addressing running back a lot heavier. The few teams that wanted a quarterback before the fall off there addressed that. Some tight ends were coming up the board, but it was really running back heavy in rounds 7 through 9 especially, but even through 10 and 11, we had quite a good number of running backs. So that was like the spot where people were addressing running backs. And there were teams that punted running back until the 11th round. So just interesting strategies and team builds here. And so again, receiver heavy early, running backs in that 7th through 11th round, quarterbacks, as we said earlier. So we had, as mentioned, 6 of them went through the first 4 rounds, and that's going to be typical this year. Again, if you haven't been dialed in, to the early season drafting, early quarterback is a real thing. I do not believe that's going away in any way at all. I believe the fantasy community has established there is a clear top list of quarterbacks. Some say 6, some say 7, depending on the scoring system. But obviously, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts in some configuration are all going the earliest. And then the next tier is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and some people like myself will have Justin Fields in that range. And then there's a third tier, which I feel in my mind is the last tier that I want if I'm going to get who I consider a strong weekly starting quarterback. And that tier is 2. It's Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. After that, there become a lot of questions and inconsistencies of quarterbacks, certainly some upside plays. But if you want one of those top quarterbacks this year, in many drafts, you're going to have to reach by the 6th round to get that quarterback, maybe the 7th, or else you're going to be going into that later tier of quarterbacks, which may be fine. For many, that's the strategy. But if you want one of those quarterbacks that are considered the top ones before the drop-off, then that is the way you may need to go. Now, for me, there are 2 ways I approach quarterback. One is I'm not going to take the top 3. I have made a decision. I want running backs and receivers earliest and the earliest picks. And so I'll let Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts come off the board. And at that point now, I'm going to look to see how my draft board stacks up. And then if I have an opportunity to draft Burrow, Jackson, Herbert, or Fields, and it works on my board, I will do that. If I miss out on them, my fail-safe is Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. I prefer Watson. If you watch my streams, you'll hear me talk about Watson and why I like him. But I do want one of those. So that's something to consider. Now, we also noted that the quarterbacks, the teams were getting their second quarterback right around the 12th round. There was one team that went a little bit earlier. But the 12th round is where teams started addressing their second quarterback. Now, this is a managed league. It's not best ball. I should have said that earlier as well. But teams still understand the importance of having that second quarterback for many reasons. Injury, and depending who you take at quarterback, there could be a fall off. Certainly, if you're taking one of the top quarterbacks, you often wait later. And the teams in this league who took Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, they did not select the second quarterback at all. They're willing to work the waiver wire for that 1 week, unless their quarterback gets hurt, that they need them. So I thought that was a very solid strategy as well. And usually I see the correlation when you take a quarterback, in the middle part of the top 12 quarterbacks, you'll address one in the 12th or so round. You might be more aggressive if you draft the late one to get 2 of them consecutively. We saw Team 11 go Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones and back-to-back 9th and 10th round picks. And that's another way to get 2 quarterbacks you like and maybe not love, but you bridge your bet by taking them both. Okay. And then tight ends. We saw 3 go through the first 5 rounds, and then they started like to drip down a little bit after that. But it was definitely not a heavy tight end early draft, and many drafts this year are not going that way. Kelsey's going in the first round, Mark Andrews second or third round, and TJ Hawkinson can go anywhere from the late third. And he went to in the early 5th. And Jay Wimmers, who drafted in the 2 spot, had said that was the latest that Hawkinson's gone in a RotoWire online challenge. So that was interesting there as well. So my build from the 10 spot, so you'll see I started out with CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams. I definitely did want to get receiver early. And my second pick with Adams, I did for a moment. I really like Nick Chubb this year. And I did consider taking him there and going wide receiver running back. But ultimately, and I know Adams right now is a disgruntled employee, and I know that Jimmy Garoppolo, there are questions as to whether he'll be the quarterback or not. But I still have to think that we've seen Devontae Adams have success because he just commands a boatload of targets, and he is one of the absolute best in the game, and he will command the ball, and he will get those. So I wanted to make sure I had an elite player, and Adams is less likely to get hurt, in my opinion, than one of the running backs. Any player could get hurt. We know that. But I felt safer with that. And then coming back in the 3rd and 4th round, I felt at that point, all right, I've got 2 high-end receivers who I'm excited about, and they were near the turn, so they were before any real drop-off. So I did feel like approaching running back to me was important here. And Najee Harris and Travis Etienne were my best values on the board. Now, am I excited about Najee Harris? Not necessarily, but he showed last year he had a preseason foot injury, and really for the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season, he was not playing at a good level. But down the stretch, it seems that whatever was wrong with that foot was healed up because he was a different player in the second half of the season, and I am banking on that happening. Pittsburgh is working on continuing to improve their offensive line, and they do seem committed to that run game. I know Jaylen Warren will be involved, but there'll be plenty for Harris. And then Travis Etienne, I don't like the fact they're talking up Tank Bigsby as maybe getting significant work. And, a lot of people hate Bigsby, but he ran behind a pretty terrible offensive line at Auburn. So Bigsby is, I believe, a good player, and I like him. But ETN should still see enough work as a running back too to carry the mail for me. Certainly, I don't consider him as a running back 1, but a running back 2, yeah, I can definitely roll with that. Receiver wise, then, because I took the 2 running backs, and I had told everybody earlier that 33 went off the boards in the first 5 rounds. So in the early 5th, I was right around where about 28 receivers are off the board. Mike Williams was sitting there, and I was very excited with Kellen Moore coming in to take over at offensive coordinator for Joe Lombardi. I do feel the downfield passing game and Justin Herbert's cannon arm are going to be displayed a lot heavier than they have in the past. So I think Mike Williams is a very nice wide receiver 3. Again, almost 30 receivers off the board. And now in the 6th round, I told everybody earlier my fail safe on quarterbacks. Well, Trevor Lawrence was already off the board. And so there were, I believe, 8 quarterbacks off the board. And so Watson was my last one that I was going to see as acceptable in that range. But to get him near the end, I don't know which round it's up, but it was the end of the 6th round that I was able to get him. And so I was very happy with that. And like I said, I believe Deshaun Watson was a speed of the game issue last year. And also emotionally, all the trouble he caused with his poor behavior. That's an understatement now, of course, but and he could have been right from that. But I think this year he's the player we'd seen in the days in Houston. And then, so to deal with the rest of the running back position, because I made a decent investment in the 3rd and 4th round, but I still felt like I wanted another cornerstone running back if available, because what I want to do is I did not want to have to take a ton of lottery tickets at running back. So James Conner's falling across the board this year. 5th round in a lot of leagues, he went to the 7th here. At that point in the early 7th round, to me, that was a no-brainer. Conner misses time, but it's usually 2 to 6 games a year. But there was only 1 year he missed more than like 3 games. So he normally is like 2 or 3. I think there was a 4 in there. There was 1 season he missed 6. So he's on the field most of the time. And even though Arizona's a trash offense, remember, He, on a PPR basis, and a per game PPR basis, was the running back 9 2 years in a row. And so when Connor's on the field, he's very effective, and he is able to break tackles, get yardage after contact. We know the offense is going to be garbage, but he's already shown Arizona's had a bad line, and he's done well. And then to round out the running back group, D'Onta Foreman goes in the 11th round, and people have Herbert ahead of him right now. Herbert went in the 9th round. Personally, the Bears had every opportunity to feature Herbert last year. David Montgomery was not playing at a high level, yet they still wanted Herbert to take the majority of the carries when both were healthy. To me, that was an organizational sign of how they see Herbert. They see him as a change of pace guy, a very good, very explosive player, but they see him as a complementary piece. So when the team brings in D'Onta Foreman, I feel like D'Onta Foreman is that between the tackles hammer. He has been good 2 years in a row. He finished out in 2021 after Derrick Henry broke his foot. He came and played very well for Tennessee. And last year, after Christian McCaffrey got traded, Foreman played very well for the Panthers. The Bears may have a maligned offensive line, which they're improving. Darnell Wright was added in the 10th pick in the draft, but their run blocking was really good last year. And so I expect that to continue. But I personally, my stance is Foreman is the lead back in that backfield. And I think he gets the goal line work. He's over 230 pounds. He's shown the ability to do that. And then I had to take a couple darts late at running back. And so in rounds 15 and 17, look, Ezekiel Elliott, I assume he will surface on a team. I know he's nowhere near the player he was, but I think he can be a grinder between the tackles. He could be good in the red zone. And so I think Ezekiel Elliott as a running back 5 makes sense. Again, it's a managed league, so if he doesn't end up somewhere, you can drop him. And then I really do like Chase Edmonds in the 17th round, because Chase Edmonds had always been a good player in Arizona. But then we go to last year, and he signs with Miami. Well, he was terrible. To me, it was very clear he was not a system fit in that offensive system. And so he gets traded to Denver, and I know he gets a high ankle sprain, but when he was on the field, he looked like a different player in Denver than he did in Miami. And I really felt that helped to solidify my stance that he was a poor system fit. So now he is only behind Rachaad White in Tampa Bay. And at the very least, this has to be a committee, I would think. Chase Edmonds is an accomplished receiver. What I saw from Rachaad White last year, certainly there were some flashes, but he did not look like an excellent running back. This is a position where Edmonds should be at least a timeshare, but Edmonds has shown on occasions that he belongs in a lead part of a timeshare, and I think he could take that role. And in the 17th round, it's a good gamble to take. A late pick on Khalil Shakir in the 18th round to round out my receivers. I'll get back to the rest of the receiver room because I did leave some holes in that when we were talking. But Khalil Shakir, look, if he emerges as the slot guy, and I know Dalton Kincaid's getting talked up the way, but Shakir played a bit last year. And when he was on the field, he looked like the player they expected when they drafted. Now, my other receivers, I went with Elijah Moore in the 8th, Darnell Mooney in the 10th, and DJ Chark in the 13th. All three of them have ability to be breakthrough players. Chark, when he's on the field, is fine. It's any injury history, and now he goes over to Carolina. He'll play with the rookie quarterback, but he'll be the lead guy there to start the season, so he should be in position to do well. Darnell Mooney had 1,055 yards 2 years ago, and now he'll be best cast as a number 2 along with DJ Moore. And I do think the Bears offense is going to be decent this year, because I do believe that Justin Fields has weapons around him. I believe that he has made progress as a player, but the offense they use purposely kept him under wraps. I think they're taking that off this year. And then Elijah Moore, I talked extensively about him on the RotoWire podcast on June 21st. And what I think about Elijah Moore is he was the 34th pick in the draft 2 years ago. He had a great 5-game stretch in 2021 before getting injured and missing the rest of the season. I believe he comes to Cleveland. Obviously the immediate slot leader, but I think when there are 2 receiver sets, he will not have any issue beating out Donovan Peoples-Jones. Some people are buzzing up Cedric Tillman. Elijah Moore, I always think, is the real deal. And I think with a real quarterback and a real offense, Elijah Moore is going to be in great shape. In terms of tight ends, I waited, And then when it was the 9th round, Evan Ingram was sitting there, and I thought it was very hard to pass on Evan Ingram at that point. I know Calvin Ridley comes in, but I think that benefits Ingram to have a legitimate number one receiver in the offense. The middle of the field gets opened up a bit more, and Christian Kirk runs there as well. But they use Ingram very well. Obviously, as a tight end, he was up and down, but Evan Ingram was a great call there. And then my Bears connection continued in round 14. I needed a second tight end, so I went with Cole Kmet. I didn't invest heavy picks in the Bears offense, but I did invest a 10th, 11th, and 14th round pick in them. So I do have definite exposure to them. Defensively this year, I ended up waiting. I thought the defenses were going a little earlier than I liked. They were going at the right time, but I just want, like I said, when I was getting Chark, Kmet, Elliott, I didn't want to take a defense at that point. I felt fine in the 16th, and I went with the Ravens. But before the end, I was the idiot person who took two defenses. But the reason I did was in round 19, I wasn't enamored with the skill position players that were left. But I think the Cleveland Browns, if they can get chemistry with the players they brought in, this could be an elite defense this year. They could be the best defense in the entire league. Now, they may not. They can cover. They definitely can rush the passer. They have 4 capable rushers now, including Myles Garrett. They did address their run defense a bit, but I drafted them as a second defense because if the chemistry isn't there, then at least I can stick with the Ravens and drop the Browns. So fine enough there. Overall, I do want to share final points from Jay Wimmer's team too before we get out here, so you can see Jay's team on the screen. So Jay believes Jay's in quite a few of these NFFC drafts, and his preference is to go with 3 receivers in the first 4 rounds. It is a strategy that a number of players used. And it is a very successful strategy because there is a good supply of wide receivers early, and there are plenty of running backs you could use to piece together a roster. And what Jay did was he went with tight end in the 5th round, TJ Hockenson, and Trevor Lawrence, quarterback in the 6th. But then he pounded running back. Now he had Nick Chubb in the 2nd, but then he went heavy between round 7 through 11 with 4 different running backs. And I like that he had Javonte Williams as his running back 3. And he agreed with me, Jay Wimmers did, that Javonte Williams is a great running back 3. We don't know what his injury status is. We don't know what we're going to get. If you're counting him as a number 2, that's too big a gamble, I think. So a gamble some might be comfortable with. I'm not. But Jay felt as in running back 3, that definitely works. And then, of course, if everything works early, you got a flex option. So you like that too. And he was targeting TJ Hockenson, and he contemplated him at the 4-2 pick, but he fell all the way to the end of the 5th. So Jay felt he got outstanding value there. So we had a number of veteran drafters in this league, so it was very competitive. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this draft analysis. We will be doing plenty more. Remember to follow me on socials at Jim Coventry NFL. And remember, if you want free access to RotoWire for a couple of days, go to rotowire.com/Jim. And remember to visit the NFFC and join their great contest. Everybody have a great day, and we will talk soon.